It's a big subject, but I'm going to focus on one turning point. William Buckley's decision to allow neoconservatives to regulate the terms of Mideast discussion in his own magazine, National Review. This development was signaled by his treatment of senior editor Joe Sobran and his denunciation of Pat Buchanan. In 1986, Bill Buckley was presented with a dossier compiled by Midge Decter and her husband, commentary editor Norman Podhoretz. It consisted of 6 syndicated columns by Joseph Sobran, accompanied by a tough letter from Decter accusing Sobran of being a naked anti-Semite. I'm not sure how to characterize the 6 columns, which were not published in National Review. My sense, and I've only read the excerpts compiled by Midge, is that they were not something I would want to write, but that they were less anti-Semitic in tone than what National Review was producing about the Eichmann trial. The two also agreed to a covenant under which Sobran would read to Buckley aloud on the telephone anything he wrote for the magazine which mentioned Israel, and Buckley would approve or disapprove. In any case, the arrangement didn't last. Sobran became an impassioned opponent of the First Iraq War. Buckley prepared a letter asking him to step down as senior editor while continuing to contribute or whatever, and Sobran resigned. The other and more important half of this story concerns Pat Buchanan, who was not a colleague of Buckley's, but in the 1980s, clearly America's most prominent media conservative. Campaign against Buchanan was instigated not by Midge and Norman, but by Times columnist A.M. Rosenthal, using a dossier of Buchanan columns prepared by the Anti-Defamation League. Pat had claimed that there were only 2 groups beating the drums for the Iraq War: the Israeli Defense Ministry and its Amen Corner in the United States. On a TV show, he referred to Congress as Israeli-occupied territory. Buckley weighed very carefully the arguments of Buchanan's attackers and defenders, and finally came to this tortured conclusion: I find it impossible to defend Pat Buchanan against the charge that what he said during the period amounted to anti-Semitism, whatever it was that drove him to say it, most probably an iconoclastic temperament. From our present point, we can see more clearly the consequences. By getting Buckley to denounce first one of his own writers, a man with whom he was personally very close, and then another extremely prominent conservative on questions related to Israel and its influence, the neoconservatives essentially won the right to supervise Israel-related discussions in National Review, which is not a neocon publication, and was the largest and most influential publication on the American right.